start pointing the finger at your other teammates, that sort of makes things a little bit different when it comes to, are you the true leader that you know you need to be? Um, to me, true leaders don't point fingers. They just show results and then everybody follows. I think it wasn't the right thing to do, but things have changed. And to Micah that's listening, one thing that I can sit right here and tell him is, never point a finger when you have the C on your chest. What you do is show it from the results that, on the football field, rushing the passer, making big plays, and everybody else follows after that.
I know Dallas Cowboys fans probably don't want to hear this, but the Cowboys may actually be receiving a blessing in disguise, especially after listening to what Demarcus Ware just said as it pertains to Micah Parsons and him pointing the finger at some of his other teammates, as long as he's supposed to be looked at as one of the leaders on that team. Now missing Micah Parsons, as he's seen with a very heavy limp, and he has a high ankle sprain, so it's possible we will not see Micah for the next 3 to 4 weeks. Probably until after the bye is when we really should expect Micah Parsons back and healthy. And Demarcus Lawrence will be being moved to IR, according to David Moore. Let's get right into this, as again, the Cowboys could be receiving a blessing in disguise, because now we about to really see the true testament of this team. Before we get into today's video though, shout out to our sponsors, BetUS, America's favorite sports book. Sign up for BetUS now and experience 150% first time deposit bonus using code YouTube150. And you'll be able to utilize this first time deposit bonus up to $2,000 for your first 3 deposits. Be sure to utilize that now, so that way you can place your bets on the Cowboys versus the Steelers next week for Sunday Night Football. Now, the Cowboys, they're pretty much going to be without a defensive line, so I would expect that the Steelers are going to get some points up, and the Cowboys going to have to score some points in order to beat them. With an over-under set at 43 points, I honestly think that game's probably going to see more points being scored than that. So checking out BetUS right now will be a good time to get those bets in. Either way, appreciate BetUS for sponsoring this video. Let's get right back into it. You can see here David Moore's reporting Cowboys will place defensive end Demarcus Lawrence on IR in the coming days. A person with knowledge of the club's thinking said. Discussions are ongoing, but plan now is to elevate defensive end Carl Lawson from the practice squad for his 3rd and final time for Sunday's game and bring in several players to work out. Now, I just want to say this right now, Cowboys fans. We're not going to overreact. We're not going to overhype any of the guys being brought in. As a Cowboys fan base, we have a nasty habit of, just because a guy puts a star on his helmet, we automatically assume we're going to get the best version of that guy, when in reality, it seems like the truth lies on the other side of that hill, meaning usually when a guy puts a star on his helmet, we see the worst version of that guy, especially if they're a free agent, right? Stephon Gilmore is one of the few exceptions to that, because he did still give us some pretty good run. But outside of him, most of the free agents that have come to this team, just in general, have not just been like these superstar studs or anything. So I'm definitely not expecting to sign anybody that's going to be a true difference maker going into the first week of October in the middle of the NFL season. If they're at home right now on their couches, there's probably a reason they're at home on their couches. I refuse to continue to get lost in this wave of Cowboys hype, and I promise y'all we're going to keep things exactly where they need to be, which is on a very even keeled level. All right, we do not want to keep riding this emotional roller coaster with the Cowboys. With that being said, now we're really going to see the true testament of what this team is, the true testament of this team's will, because now the team is going to have to rely on the scheme. What happens when you don't have talent on a roster? What happens when you don't have the players really available on a roster that can really mask some of the deficiencies of a scheme, or mask some of the deficiencies with the play calling? What happens then is the microscope is put squarely on the coaches and what the coaches are able to do. And this is truly going to be the time where we can figure out if Mike Zimmer can scheme us into games, if Mike Zimmer can scheme us to stay close, if Mike Zimmer actually has it still, if he actually has it to be able to actually game plan a defense that you're not relying on these super uber talented players. You're relying on NFL football players to go out there and play a role on your defense, in your scheme, and just execute your play calls. And we're going to see what that looks like and what the results are for this defense. I've been a huge proponent of bringing in someone with the mentality of a Mike Zimmer, because I felt like his mentality that he used to display, at least, because we haven't seen much of that here in Dallas yet. But I mean, even though Wanye, he gave us a little peek on the inside of the curtain, he did let us know Mike Zimmer did kind of raise the heat up a little bit. But we haven't just seen it from a public standpoint. We haven't really seen that mentality, that toughness, like that discipline that we really thought we were going to get from a Mike Zimmer, which honestly was why I thought he was so attractive as a defensive coordinator. Now, obviously a Rex Ryan or someone like that, someone that's really creative with what they're doing, or even one of these young wonder boys. Obviously, any of those type of guys, I would take that as well. But just from a standpoint of looking at what Mike Zimmer is truly able to do, we're going to get a chance to, one, see what his scheme is really capable of and see how good of a coach he still is right now. I'm not asking him to shut anybody down, but what I do want to see is, are we going to still be able to field a serviceable NFL defense, or are we going to see more of the same where these guys continue to let teams score damn near every possession? Are we going to continue to see that? And if that's the case, then it ain't got nothing to do with the players. It's clearly what Mike Zimmer is trying to do with these guys they're not comfortable with, and it's just not catching on, right? The other thing we're going to get to see is, what if the defense plays decently well? What if the defense actually starts to generate some pressure? What if the defense actually continues to play the run a little bit better? What if Mozzie Smith continues to show growth? What if Marshawn Nealon really steps into his own? What if some of these other guys, the Tyrus Wheats, the Chauncey Goldsons, the Carl Lawsons, what if the defense actually looks decent? What happens then? Because as of right now, Micah Parsons, he's not having a very Micah Parsons-like season. Even in this last game right here, Micah Parsons had 30 pass rushes and only generated 4 pressures on those pass rushes. Recorded no sacks. He really wasn't that much of a factor. And we all know that Micah Parsons' best asset is his ability to rush the passer. We're not going to act like he's an above average run stuffer, because that's just not true. If anything, he's probably an average run stuffer, maybe even a below average run stuffer. But Micah Parsons, without a doubt, his best attribute is rushing the passer. Problem is, this season, Micah has 14 tackles through 4 games and 1 sack. He hasn't been Micah Parsons. Demarcus Lawrence, he made some noise in that game against the Browns, but since then, he's been kind of quiet too. And those have also been the 2 entities that we've seen butting heads on that sideline. It seems like they're at the core of the power struggle of this Dallas Cowboys defense. It's almost like there's a resistance to pass the torch to the next generation. I want to see what the defense looks like without these guys. I think it's early enough in the season to where even if we do drop a couple of games here, it's still early enough in the season where our team can still try to battle back and get in position to get them one of the wild card spots, especially since the NFL has more teams making the playoffs. The Cowboys will still be in a position to battle for a wild card spot. So I think it's early enough in the season where this is good. You want to see stuff like this. You want to see your team have to battle through adversity earlier on in the year versus later on in the year, because make no bones about it. Had we just went through the first 12, 13, 14 weeks of the season with generally good health, no real huge injuries, the law of averages was going to come back and get us in the butt, y'all. We were going to end up losing something, or someone's going to get nicked or injured, or something was going to happen right before the playoffs. So you rather see that your team face this adversity early on to see if they can even make it through adversity. We're about to get every single answer about this Cowboys team over the next couple of weeks that we could possibly ask for as far as what this team is made of, just based off of what they show us, not necessarily the results, because again, it's still early enough in the season. They're 2-2. They could drop 2 games back to back. They could lose to the Steelers and the Lions, and guess what? They would still be firmly in place to still battle for a wild card position after they come out that bye week, get a little streak going, and bada bing, bada boom, you're right there back into action. I want to see what this team is made of. I want to see if this defense looks better without some of their star players. If this defense looks better having to rely on Mike Zimmer's scheme independently versus relying on the uber talented players that's on that defensive side of the ball. I want to see if this offense is going to continue to improve. I want to see if Dak Prescott is going to take control. I want to see if Mike McCarthy is going to continue to show why I don't think that he should be the head coach here anymore with this old antiquated scheme and his questionable play calling and his seemingly lack of motivation that he's providing for the team. I want to see what this Dallas Cowboys team is made out of, and I think that this situation with Demarcus Lawrence, with this Liz Frank injury, he's going to be out probably for about 6 to 8 weeks, y'all. Demarcus Lawrence is probably not going to be back until the end of November. Just expect that until around Thanksgiving, we're probably not going to be hearing from Demarcus Lawrence. So I want to see what this team is made of, and this is the perfect opportunity to do so. No, I'm not going to panic. No, the sky is not falling because, quite frankly, Micah Parsons wasn't giving you Micah Parsons' presence so far this year. Maybe he needs to sit down for a second and really see what this defense is trying to do. Maybe he needs to sit down for a second and see how he can be better for this team, what he can really do to really help this defense, right? And that's just a challenge to Micah Parsons because, bro, you're next up to be getting paid almost $40 million a season. And I'm going to tell you, bro, just being a pass rusher, just being someone that can get sacks early on in the season and not being someone like a Chris Jones, man. Chris Jones, I sat there and watched Chris Jones for the Kansas City Chiefs yesterday. He makes plays. Every time there's a big moment on that defense and a play to be made, you're going to see number 95 flash. We need to see that from number 11, right? So this is going to be a very, very interesting period of time. I'm not panicking. It's still fairly early in the season. I generally don't start really passing judgment and really taking any analysis of what these teams are very seriously until about week 8, week 9. I think that's when you really see what these teams are, who these teams are, et cetera, et cetera. But this is going to be a very, very, very interesting test. Again, shout out to our sponsors, BetUS. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe to the channel for more Dallas Cowboys content. And let me know down in the comments below, do you think that this could end up being a blessing in disguise as it pertains to the Cowboys defense missing Micah Parsons and Demarcus Lawrence? And what do you think the defense is going to look like being led solely by Mike Zimmer now? We still same old Cowboys.
Calling me, texting me, paging me, asking me, am I still them boys? Y'all usually check on me. Listen. I'm still them boys. Hey! Woo! Hey! I'm still them boys.